Hey Bat fans, Luke here, ready to bat chat about another Bat book, and today we're going to take a look at Batman False Faces. And Batman False Faces is a collection of, we'll call it, one, two, three, we'll say 3.5 stories, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they're all written by Brian K. Vaughn, with art by Scott McDaniel, Rick Burchett, and Scott Collins. And Brian K. Vaughn, you should know him if you're reading comics outside of kind of like the big two, especially today. Myself, I'm only reading one of his current books, and that is Paper Girls. I know he just did another one that dealt with something like the borders. That was a short one that didn't really kind of measure up to what I kind of normally like to read. Also, Saga. Now, Saga, I haven't read it. Again, it's one that's just not my thing. That said, I definitely acknowledge what Saga has done for the comic book industry. It's going on a year hiatus, which is insane too, based off how the last issue kind of wrapped up, and that's 54 issues, I think. It was 54, 52, but for Image, it's an Image book. That's insane. So definitely, while it's definitely not one that I personally feel the need to read, doesn't really fit my taste. But that said, I still acknowledge its prominence with the industry. So that's Brian K. Vaughn's. In this book collection, like I said, about 3.5 stories, and I think it's actually 1, 2, 3. We'll see. It's a collection of stories from the pages of Wonder Woman 160, 161, Batman Gotham City Secret Files #1, Batman issues 588 to 590, Detective Comics issue 787. And the bulk of what I kind of want to focus on in this book is the ones from the pages of Batman. And what this one is, it's actually what starts off the book. It's predominantly a Matches Malone story. And what you see in this, it's kind of like, well, it's not kind of, it is. It's a retelling of the Matches Malone origin story, in that it's gonna update the one we saw kind of in the pages of Tales of the Demon. So if you kind of don't know what I'm talking about there, I did a Tales of the Demon review way back when. Go ahead and take a look at that video, and it kind of explains a little bit about how the Matches Malone character kind of came about. Also kind of putting in context what's going around in Batman's world at the time. This is right after No Man's Land. Commissioner Gordon has since retired, and Alfred has also gone away. And this is Batman kind of at a very, what's the word I'm looking for, vulnerable point in his career, and the Matches Malone persona kind of pops up. Also in this story, you see as kind of like the main villain in this, in the story, which it says False Faces, name of the book, but the storyline that we're really going after is the one that's entitled, go back, Close Before Striking, and that does have the art by Scott McDaniel. Scott McDaniel, you'll know his stuff with his run on Ed Brubaker, Bruce Wayne Fugitive, and Criminal, and Murder, I'm sorry. That circa time of Batman story. And again, the main villain behind this one it is Ventriloquist and Wesker. And what's coming about in the story, the main plot is the Matches Malone persona that Batman uses to kind of infiltrate the underworld. It's kind of under scrutiny right now. People don't think that, when I say people, the criminals think Matches Malone is trustworthy, because every time he pops up and gets put into their plan, the cops or Batman shows up kind of forward. So they kind of don't trust him. So initially what Bruce is trying to do is go in and give some credibility back to the Matches Malone persona. In that case, in doing so, what he does is enlist the help of Nightwing to play Batman, and Matches Malone kind of stand up to Batman, spit in his face, and Batman, obviously, Nightwing, Batman, kind of beats up Matches Malone a little bit. And then we see in front of all these other criminals this occur. So you see a little bit of the prestige kind of come back up into Matches Malone. And in doing so, Matches Malone, which is now Bruce Wayne this time, kind of gets lured in to meet up with Harold Wesker and Scarface to kind of move in these anti-armor piercing bullets that are going into Gotham. Batman obviously uses intelligence to kind of thwart the crime, and now obviously this occurs. Now Scarface puts two and two together and blames this on Matches Malone. And what happens when Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson kind of go back to the Batcave to kind of talk about what's going on, Oracle comes online and lets them know that Matches Malone has been shot. And at this point, if you're kind of stuck in the old mythology, you're going to be like, what the heck is going on? But what this story kind of does, I don't want to spoil too much in kind of like the origin of Matches Malone that occurs in these pages, but basically what's come about is that the Matches Malone character, the persona, never kind of went away, but the real Matches Malone kind of comes back into the fold, and that he's hearing about how his name is kind of getting dragged through the mud, and obviously he's kind of standing up to the underworld, and that again he's kind of taking pride in his name and the prestige behind the Malone persona, and that's where someone shoots him and whatnot. And then we kind of get the point of the story which I was kind of confused on a little bit, in that Batman does go to investigate the shooting of Matches Malone. Obviously it's going to tip him off a little bit, but this is where you find out the backstory of what actually occurred, the actual origin, the correlation to what happened to his brother, the stage that Matches Malone kind of set up to kind of throw people off his scent that he was still alive. Again, not kind of going too much in the origin. A little bit. I'll just say that he staged a crime scene and that it looked like he burned a building down and his body was still inside and got burned to death. But there's a plot twist in that, and that we find out in correlation to something that him and his brother has done earlier. The body that was in the crime scene that Batman initially found and kind of buried was not Matches Malone. And that's something Batman kind of hovers around here, is that, hey, I got kind of lazy in that one. I'm the world's greatest detective. Really didn't rely on the science as much. And that later what then happens as that kind of comes back to present day, Matches Malone does end up dying from his wounds and makes a death promise request, I guess, to Batman, for Batman to kill the people that took him down, and Batman acts up on it. And that's where we see Oracle and Nightwing kind of come to the fold and kind of pull back Bruce Wayne a little bit. And it's harping out throughout in the story that the reason why Bruce Wayne is kind of over edge on this part is that, again, as I was talking about before, Commissioner Gordon has been retired. Alfred is gone. Technically, there is no Robin right now in Batman's life staying with him, so he's on his own and he's kind of dealing with all this stuff, and this is something that just kind of pushes him over the edge. And we do see what happens at the end. There is an epic conclusion to the story where Batman does meet up with Wesker and Scarface, and we do see sort of a way that kind of comes at the very end how the Matches Malone persona is still brought back, even though he's dead for real in here, where again you get some of the credibility while throwing off the fact that he's definitely not Batman. He's definitely not maybe associated with Batman, but what Matches Malone has done is taken down the ventriloquist, Scarface in the eyes of the criminal underworld, and that again kind of gives Matches Malone credibility, which Batman does have the opportunity to kind of get rid of the Matches Malone persona, but chooses not to again. And now he's got that credibility again, and he doesn't kind of want to waste it. And then that's that story. The next story we get, it's a simple one and done. It's called Mimsy Were the Bargroves, which actually has art by Tim Sale. And this one looks a lot like Batman the Animated Series, which I did really enjoy a lot. And this one's a Mad Hatter story. It kind of delves into the theme of, we send these villains to Arkham Asylum. I mean, if they're mentally ill, how do you sit there and treat them? And it's something that Mad Hatter does to this with his psychologist, is kind of put him through the ringer in a way that involves Man-Bat and the Man-Bat serum to transform this other person, to make him kind of realize the only way you can kind of treat these people with these mental disorders is kind of look at it from their lens. And that's what you do see. And it's an interesting story. The art, again, has a very much of a animated series type of kind of theme to it. But beyond that, it's relatively a simple one. One that I wasn't all that terribly enthused by, even though it did have an interesting theme and was nice to look at. Next is it's a two-parter. It's a Wonder Woman story that has to deal with something I thought could be interesting, in that it deals with an interaction between her and Clayface, both obviously having the close tie to Clay, and then Clayface wanting to sit there and consume Wonder Woman, for lack of better terms, so he can obviously consume her portion of Clay, and that can make him strong. And that's what you do see, him actually become like a god in this, because he consumes the power of Wonder Woman. And that's really it. Donna Troy's in here. The only thing that's kind of cool about this story is that you see cameos, again, by Donna Troy. Cheetah, she's not really Cheetah, she's obviously Clayface, so that don't count. You have Oracle shows up in this briefly, Nightwing briefly, and Tim Drake show up very briefly in this story. And that's really about it. The only way this kind of gets tied into this book, obviously, because it has the Clayface story, and whatever. Really wasn't a fan of it. And that ends up on this story I was kind of talking about. It's kind of like a half story. It's Skullduggery. And it's this villain, the Skeleton, who's kind of adapting some of the other villains throughout Gotham. You see Joker, you see Riddler, and you have Mr. Freeze. Kind of showing how he's going to trap Batman by kind of, after studying these criminals and these villains, kind of setting him up for a trap, making Batman believe it's the other people that are actually doing it and not this character. It was interesting. It was really short. It's really dialogue heavy for how short it was. But that was really it. Overall, I like how you get kind of a variety of stories in here. I did like the Matches Malone story thematically. It did have some problems I thought with it. Thematically, the one thing that really I didn't have much of a positive feeling for is how quick Batman goes to kind of avenge Matches Malone, and how he kind of dives more into the Matches Malone persona, not in that he also wants to use it for him as a way to kind of what's the word I want to look for? Infiltrate the criminal underworld. It's the fact that he gets lost up in the persona, because it's portrayed that he's kind of in depression. Like, oh, I have nobody, and now Matches Malone died right in front of me. Now I'm going to sit there and live my life through Matches Malone. I really didn't like it that much. Other thing I kind of didn't like as much is that you can kind of see the plot twists coming, to be perfectly frank. How the real Matches Malone kind of comes back. And it kind of comes back and forth. And it's one that I think you can kind of piece it together pretty simply. But overall, I dig the story. I like how we had Scarface in this, and Ventriloquist. He's one of those villains that you don't see a whole lot of, and when you see ones that are good, it really does make for a good reading experience. Um, the Wonder Woman one, I wouldn't even put it in the book, to be perfectly honest. I really, just the fact that it had tie-ins and cameos by some of the Bat family is the only reason I think it kind of got put in this book. The one-shotter we had from Detective Comics, that's the one with Mad Hatter. Had a good theme. I just think the dialogue and the way it was kind of executed felt kind of short. And that one half story at the very end was okay, but I think it kind of got into this whole Brian K. Vaughn theme. That's the only reason it was kind of collected in this. The thing that really drove me nuts the most is this cover. This is probably the most misleading cover I think I might have seen on a trade in a very, very long time. I mean, it's nice looking. I like how McDaniel draws Wonder Woman and got Batman and this puddle of blood here. You got, I don't think my camera can show it. You have Mad Hatter. You have Matches Malone and Clayface. You know, the bulk of the people that are going to show up in this story. Don't see Scarface though. But in no way do you even have interaction at all between these two in this book. Even in Wonder Woman's story, Tim Drake brings up the fact that, you know, Batman's not going to help Wonder Woman, and for good reasons, but there is no correlation. Yeah, this is a misleading cover, to say the least. Art's okay, and then also, I kind of like the older origin of Matches Malone, to be honest. Even though it was kind of executed really well, I kind of like the other one, found in Tales of the Demon. Overall, this one, hardcover, priced at $20. It's been out for a while, so and I've seen it here and there, so you should be able to get your hands on it if you want. But that said, this one, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. It was fun. The fun parts were fun. The cringy parts were cringy. And this one, again, it's middle of the road. Come across it. If you can get it for 20 bucks, this hardcover. Anything more than that, I might say kind of pass on it. And obviously, if you're a hardcore Batman collector, yeah, get it. If not, prioritize other stuff. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on Batman False Faces. Hit me up in the comments below what you thought about it. We'll bat chat and go from there. And until next video, take care.